Welcome to the Horti-Culturalists. I'm Stephen Ryan.
And I'm Matthew Lucas. Now, we post a video every week on a Friday, so do hit subscribe if you want to know exactly what we're doing every week on a Friday.
And don't forget our Monday Shorts. If you've got a question you'd like to ask me, put it in the comments below and we'll get round to answering it on a Monday.
We will indeed. But Stephen, I'm sensing a very glorious nursery environment behind us.
Yes.
Where are we?
All right, well, we're at Kuranga Native Nursery at Mount Evelyn at the foothills of the Dandenong Ranges.
Yes.
And it is one of Australia's premier Australian native plant growing nurseries.
And I must say, there's the most amazing fragrance surrounding us. So we're going to have a little wander around the nursery, meet the owner, Ben, and talk all things native plants.
Why don't we do just that?
Okay. But now, Stephen, before we go and meet Ben, who's the owner of this wonderful nursery, we must say too, there is the most incredible restaurant and cafe here. We just had the best lunch, I think,
yes,
ever
it was fantastic.
in a nursery. So when you come here, come for the day because it's really stunning. There's a really great shop too, which has a really great book section, which is not easy to come across these days.
Yes, good gardening books.
So here we are, native plants. Now I don't wish to allude to age, but you've kind of been through various iterations of the native plant push, I guess. And we've also visited Edna Walling Gardens, and Edna Walling ended up becoming a great proponent of native planting. So give us the potted history of the use of native plants in this country in a gardening perspective.
All right, well, before my time in horticulture, gardening was all about trying to copy things from overseas. So they wanted the English-style gardens. They certainly didn't appreciate our Australian native plants particularly, with the exception of one or two things. But when the 60s hit, the 1960s, there was this incredible push to grow native plants. What tended to happen though, because we didn't have a long background in creating native plants, we didn't do a lot of breeding with our native plants. So anything that happened to grow in Australia was seen as something that they should be growing and selling to the poor home gardener who had no idea what they were getting. So a lot of inappropriate stuff showed up in the 1960s, and nor were they pruned, cared for, watered properly. And so unfortunately, after that period of time, people suddenly realised that a blue gum wasn't a very good idea in a tiny front garden in suburban Melbourne. And so, in fact, there was a backlash against our Australian native plants, rather unfortunately. But it was because we weren't really ready for it to become a major part of horticulture, because we didn't have the breeding and the selection and all those things that hundreds of years had created with many of the Northern Hemisphere garden plants. So we were just planting almost anything just because it was native. So now we're coming back again. We went through an era after the native era where the cottage garden became a major thing, and then we realised in Australia that a lot of cottage garden plants are herbaceous, so our winters looked a bit boring if you only had herbaceous perennials. And now we've come back into natives again. I reckon from the mid-1980s through to 1990, native plants started to get pushed forward again. But this time people actually had information, they had knowledge about what they were doing, and they were selecting superior forms of many of the plants. And so now when you go out to plant a native garden, there's every likelihood that you'll be buying hybrid native plants that are specifically selected for garden usage.
And many grafted specimens too, because here in Victoria, in many parts, there's too much water, too wet for a lot of the native plants from more arid parts. They are grafted onto rootstock that can take water. So it's really become very sophisticated, the Australian native plant market.
It's good to see proponents of it here at a nursery like this. And we're also seeing more sort of use of native plants in street side plantings, in botanic gardens, general garden parks and things that people can go walk the dog in. So our Australian natives have become part of the whole scenario again. And I think we did get away from that it's either natives or it's not type gardening, because that was the other issue. When people went native in the early days, they went completely Australian native, and there was all sorts of things said about you can't mix exotics with natives and all these different things, which is absolutely not true.
And the growing trend also for Mediterranean planting. So obviously a lot of Australian plants fit that bill, but not all of them. So not every Australian plant is water wise.
No,
not every Australian plant can take full sun. Not every Australian plant doesn't need pruning or watering or mulching or feeding. So they're as complex to look after as any other plant in many regards.
Of course they are. I mean, and in fact, there's other layers. Many of our Australian native plants have a phosphorus allergy, so you can't use high phosphate fertilisers on them. But that doesn't mean they can't grow in the same environments as, say, your azaleas, your camellias, your rhododendrons, your magnolias. It's just a matter of using them appropriately.
Yeah. And so just a note about the nursery, it's open to the public, and Kuranga doesn't wholesale, they just focus on their retail customers, and they don't have an e-com site for plants, so you're going to have to come here. So even if you are wherever else in Australia, unfortunately, they can't ship to you. And just a note as well, any Australian nursery can't ship live plants out of the country, nor can you import them. So for those of you outside of Australia, this is just a wonderful, tantalising ramble through Australian native plants.
Horticultural eye candy, basically.
Well, on that note, we should go and meet Ben, who is the owner-operator of this extraordinary place.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Well, Matthew, here we are standing in the middle of a fascinating Australian native nursery, Kuranga, and I'd like to introduce Ben Clarke, who is the owner of this wonderful place.
Great to meet you, Ben. Thanks for having us.
No worries. Our pleasure.
Slightly brisk.
Yes. Yes. Well, it's still early in the season. We'll be whinging about summer any minute now, but anyhow.
First observation, Ben, you are under the age of 60. And honestly, it's kind of a rare thing. So how did you end up the owner of this incredible nursery?
Yeah, it's a few people say that. I've had a bit of a long history at Kuranga. So I started here as an apprentice in 2008. So I started out as a grower. I was in charge of the forestry tubes, so I was doing like wild collection of seed, and then I ended up in the retail nursery working there. So I've sort of worked in various roles, and then I went and had a landscaping business for about 10 years, design and construct, build up some capital, and then eventually the previous owners were ready to retire and had a chat, and we did
Boots and all.
a succession plan, and this is what I'm doing for the next 30 years. So
you'll have to start your succession plan before
What's your succession plan, Steve?
I'll just drop dead and somebody will have to deal with the mess. That's what's going to happen with mine.
It's such a great story.
It is. It's fabulous, and it's and because you've had such a background in the industry, obviously you're not stepping in and buying somebody else's nursery and having to learn as you go. You've already got a lot of that knowledge.
I do. Love the work anyway, like the technical propagation and the plant side of it. It's what my natural sort of, I do feel like I'm an environmentalist and have this real love of the Australian natural environment. So that sort of underpins everything and our philosophies. And then, operating a large nursery is just, the other side of it all.
Now, you mentioned propagating and things. Now, Kuranga actually does most of its own propagating as well. So that's a rare thing in a retail setting, because most retailers buy in from some wholesaler somewhere and then just sell it on. But you're not doing that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, maybe years ago, like when nursery started, a lot of the retailers were growing stock or potting it up. We've never stopped doing that. When the nursery started, if we wanted to have a wide range of plants, we realised we had to grow them. In-house, and it's still the backbone of our whole stock list. So we've got the widest range in the country.
Do you?
Of Australian natives.
Good for you.
And this year it was around 70% that was produced in-house.
Well, that's pretty impressive, I have to say.
I must say the setting is really beautiful too. So are we at the edge of the Dandenongs, the beginning of the Dandenongs? So the landscape changes as you leave Melbourne, but it's very sort of undulating and beautiful. There's a creek here, but just also interesting you mentioning your landscaping background. The physical layout of the nursery is really beautiful. So talk to us a little bit about what's the thinking around how you've actually structured this area.
It is unique compared to a lot of garden centres. We've got
It's very tidy, Stephen.
All right, don't look at me when you say that.
No, we're proud of the merchandising here, and it
looks stunning.
It isn't the normal sort of cookie cutter retail nursery.
No.
Everything's, because we've got such a wide range, it's categorised in size categories. So we've got ground covers, small shrubs, medium shrubs, and then each section's alphabetical, which allows...
so organised.
So the staff can restock, customers can find things, self-serve, and really if they're doing their own landscape design or plant selection, they can build it out. So you need a tree, you get your tree, you need a hedge, you go to large shrubs, you need your border plants, you go to ground covers, and it sort of you know.
Because I think too, just because the very breadth of native plants, and this is a huge continent, we have lots of different climatic zones. So a specialist nursery like you, it can be quite overwhelming.
Yeah.
But,
It's which one do I buy?
The amateur punter not knowing, well, where do I begin? So I think the way you've laid it out is genius because it's so self-explanatory. And then within that, you've got to make your choice. But at least you know where you're starting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a challenge. And yeah, I feel for our customers sometimes. You see them pick up a plant, look at the label, put it down, on to the next one, pick up a plant. And I'm just scratching my head thinking, yeah, they need a hand here. So that's
or your nursery team. But the other thing you've done to solve that problem is around the periphery, you've got a nursery garden, which we were saying is not that common.
It isn't in this country, and I guess to a certain extent, particularly with suburban nurseries and things, part of the issue is just utilising space as well as you can. Yeah. At least here you've got the room to move outwards a bit and do these things. Yeah. But also it must be multi-purpose, this whole garden. I mean, it helps people make selections because they can see a big one. That's always a great thing. But you'd also use it for propagating and, you know, so there'd be multi-levels with the display gardens.
Yeah. Absolutely. We trial things, see what they grow like. We have them to inspire our customers and see the habit and the form and the flowering, you know, combinations with other plants. Propagation. It's our stock gardens as well, so we collect cuttings. Yeah. And it's more of a collection. It isn't design. It isn't the most beautifully designed layout, but
I don't know.
Yeah.
Being hard on yourself.
I've
seen some really ugly display gardens in my time.
Yeah.
But I think this is actually
quite you've at least tried to sort of give people a sense of how these things will work in their own garden.
It's very layered and textured.
So if people see the big plant and they can walk over to the bench and they can see it on the bench, it just makes life so much easier. It's fabulous.
And you've been you've been helpful. Like you've got your semicircle plants and then around it is planted the larger versions of that plant. So it's really easy for the client.
Yeah.
So native plants, native gardening. I mean, Stephen often alludes to the evil 60s when the native sort of trend really started happening. So where are we now? Where is the native industry now in terms of how these plants are used and fashion, but also sustainability and availability?
Yeah, I think it's improved since then. We've got more to choose from and potentially nicer cultivars.
I was going to say that's what was the big problem I felt back in the, I remember the 60s, isn't it awful, was the fact that it was mainly unselected material that was coming out of the wild and it was being sold only because it was a native.
Yeah.
And we didn't have hundreds of years of cultivating and selecting and breeding and things like a lot of the European and North American plants had. So there was some pretty rubbishy things that were being sold back then, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Some of the big sort of shrubby callistemons, and maybe not knowing the full dimensions of things, people get a bad taste when the Westringers are 3-4 meters tall in little suburban backyards, and it's you just want people to have a good experience. So I think that's it's much easier for people to select plants that are more compact and better for suburban gardens these days.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed, which is not common in nurseries, Stephen, right?
Oh, right.
Is the incredible, beautiful building that's sort of, I guess, the heart of the nursery here. So was that here when you took on the nursery?
That's right, yep. The building was built in the early 2000s, around 2004. And that's where we've got our gift shop, curated gifts, Australiana gifts, and specialty books and that sort of thing. And we've also got a licensed restaurant, so we do breakfast and lunch.
We'll be visiting there in due course.
I love a restaurant and I love a gift shop. We always exit through the gift shop.
Yeah, we do. Of course we do.
So the cafe is a really important part of the business. So we've got a bush food inspired menu.
I saw you've got a bush food over there. So are you using things in your kitchen?
There's a few things that we have in the gardens here that we use. Finger limes and the warrigal greens. Yeah.
We've done a finger lime. Well, not a standalone story.
No, it wasn't a standalone story, but we have mentioned finger limes.
I had no idea there was an Australian native citrus.
Oh, they're amazing.
They are amazing. It's like caviar.
Exactly. Now, I've got another sort of thing I'd like to chat to you about, Ben. I find a lot of people come into my nursery, the messy one that Matthew's always talking about.
With no cafe.
With no cafe.
You do make a cup of tea if your arm's twisted.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people come in with the idea that because they're asking for native plants, it's either going to make life so much easier, and they're all the same, and they'll all grow for you, and somehow or another you're on the higher moral ground just because you're buying something that's native. How do you deal with that sort of thing here?
Yeah, it's it's the whole continent of Australia, technically. You can get into local plants, endemic plants, your local gene pool of the local area. We've got plants from right across the country. Yep. And it's sort of like matchmaking. Not every plant's going to grow in every situation.
Of course.
And some of the motivations to plant native plants being lower water use, less maintenance. It's true in some instances, but it's not always the case. Yeah, it's sort of like matchmaking. You've got to,
it's, you've set up a nursery or you've bought a nursery that's has a specific genre that it works within, which is Australian native plants, which is fabulous because you can do them better than most because you're not having to then have apple trees and roses as well. So you've aligned yourself to that part of the industry. So I guess anybody coming here will have expectations of what they can get from your nursery. And with the range you've got, do you know how many plants you possibly propagate for the nursery, an approximate number of species? Or
the full range, it's over 3,000.
It's
it can
impressive.
swell up to 3,500 lines if you include all the ferns and dig lines, and some of the more unusual collector plants that come through in very small numbers. So
which I've noticed a few already.
Yes, you have.
I've sworn not to buy anything, Ben. I think I am being tempted. So do you do e-com? Can people buy online through your website?
Oh, we do homewares and gift shop items online, but we don't do plants.
Right, so they have to come into the nursery and talk to any of your wonderful team of Art Plus. So we'll put the link below to the website, which has all the opening hours, and the link to your Instagram account, which is pretty brilliant.
Yeah, it's Kuranga Native Nursery on Instagram and Facebook, and
we'll link all those below. But it's been brilliant to talk to you, Ben. Thank you so much. So Steve and I are now going to wander around the brilliantly designed layout.
I'm going to go and learn about some native plants I haven't met before.
Anything you think we should go and look at particularly?
There's this time of year, there's hundreds of options, but I wanted to focus on phibaliums and maybe show you some beronias as well.
Okay, we might do that in another video. But in the meantime, we're going to go and wander around. We might be exiting through the gift shop. Ben, thanks so much for your time.
No worries.
Thanks, Ben.
All good.
Well, Stephen, so great to talk to Ben. The layout of this place is extraordinary. So I think we're going to start at the very beginning, which is ground covers.
All right, let's have a look at the little things that you need for your garden.
Yes. Well, Stephen, this place is so well laid out. So each sort of section is in a large circle and everything is alphabeticized.
Yes, so if you want an acacia, you go to A section.
And you work around.
Yep.
But also, it's very visible. So behind us, there are part of the gardens, the nursery gardens, where you can see a lot of these things growing, so you get a sense of what they do. But I guess maybe for a lot of our viewers, some things, so we're in the ground cover section. We started at the lowest ebb.
Yes, exactly, or the shortest or whatever, yes.
And some things I just think are maybe a bit surprising.
Well, I guess that's the case because, as we said at the beginning of this whole exercise, Australian native plants are now being selected, bred, and there's all sorts of appropriate garden forms of plants that aren't like the ones in the wild.
No, perhaps this being a great example. So this is an acacia and it's actually called Kuranga Cascade, which would suggest it was selected here. And I guess you just don't think of acacias as ground covers.
Well, you don't, because there's not many of them in the wild that in fact are. I mean, this particular one, the wild form of it is a really large shrub / small tree.
Yeah, this is, what's the botanic? Acacia pravissima.
Yes, pravissima is a lovely wattle with these triangular phyllodes on it, because they're not true leaves, of course. A lot of acacias don't have true leaves. They have modified stems that do the function of leaves. So there you go.
And this one actually is just coming into bud.
Yep.
And obviously that's what it looks like, yellow and fluffy. Surprise, surprise.
Yes, exactly.
And what have you got?
Well, I've actually got a prostrate form of a Banksia here.
Yeah.
So this is called Pygmy Possum, which I think is quite a cute name for it, because of course Pygmy possums in Western Australia, in fact, feed off Banksia nectar to a large extent. So yeah, so this is one of the prostrate / cascading forms of, again, what would be a large Banksia. So I think that is quite something. And when you think about the size of a Banksia flower, because they're generally quite large cone-shaped flowers, That's also something you don't expect ground covers to do, is to have big showy flowers.
No.
But this one certainly does. So Pygmy Possum, it's a lovely form of Banksia serrata. I think it's got great garden potential.
And just looking around us, there are so many very interesting, there's grevilleas, there's tea trees, there's also herbaceous things, there's sort of more daisy-like plants, kind of really everything. It's really fascinating and so easily laid out. All right. Should we go up to the next tier?
All right, let's go and meet some shrubs.
Okay. No, there might be something in between.
You think?
I don't know. Well, let's go and have a look.
Yeah, let's have a look.
Well, Stephen, welcome to grasses, lilies and tufting plants.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so quite a broad category, one has to say.
And lots of amazing grasses and sedges in the Australian native world.
And lots of things that just have strappy leaves that aren't necessarily related to sedges or grasses.
Yeah.
So we've got a little selection here.
A few things. So the first thing is, from my childhood in Western Australia, Horti-Culturalists, these were actually growing in our garden when I first arrived, and they always astounded me because they're the softest sort of furry, but weird, because it's like, I don't know, like a Renaissance torture implement, because it's like a club, which doesn't really, well, if they do open.
That's not where I was going to go with that story, I have to say.
Anyway, but it's such an amazing yellow as well. And I guess yellow is quite a theme in Australian native flowers, isn't
yes,
it?
we do yellow quite well in general. And did you realise that's related to the kangaroo paw?
Oh, I can see that now.
Yeah, it's in the same family.
So this is Horti-Culturalists Nangara. Cottonheads, I think, is the cultivar name.
Yeah.
But a really fabulous strappy thing.
Yep, very cute little plant indeed.
Yeah.
And I've got a couple of things that I picked up that I thought were rather fun.
Yeah.
For those who like a challenge.
A
bland 40 grandiflora, which is commonly known here as Christmas bells, because it comes out in the middle of our summer, which is the Christmas time. And it's become almost an Australian plant symbol of Christmas. So you'll often see it on greeting cards and Christmas cards and things like that, where people are trying to engender an Australian feel.
I have never seen one in bloom.
Haven't you?
No, I've killed the Tasmanian one.
Yeah, well, the Tasmanian one's probably even more difficult than this one. Tasmanian one is Punicea, and it certainly doesn't cope with 40 degrees. It's not really happy in most parts of mainland Australia. This one comes from New South Wales, grandiflora, and it does seem to be a little more adaptable. But nonetheless, it's another one of those plants that Kuranga sell as a fuss pot. In other words, it can be a little bit demanding on its requirements, but well worth the effort if you can get it to grow well, because the orange and yellow trumpety flowers that it gets are just stunning.
And actually, there's a lovely picture of them there on the tag.
Yeah.
A really beautiful plant.
It is, it's gorgeous.
And I think Ben's point with the things that they've set up bus pots is about largely the drainage and the soil, isn't it?
Oh, it is to a large extent, although it can have to do with high temperatures and what have you as well.
Now, I've got a general question for you. There are lots of Australian natives like this. This is, common name is morning iris, and its botanic name is Orthrosanthus multiflorus.
Yes.
Lots of things that look like iris. So are they, in fact, irises? Do we have native irises?
We don't have any true native iris per se, but things like this plant are actually in the iris family, so they're in the Iridaceae, but they're different genera, so we don't have any true iris that grow here in Australia.
Interesting. But a lot of flowers really do look iris-like.
Oh yeah,
that are
it's actually quite a big family. There's, I mean, the iris genus itself is huge, but there's all sorts of other things in Iridaceae, like gladioli. You know, there's.
I didn't know that. Goodness.
So there's a whole range of different genera that belong in that family, and Orthrosanthus is one of our Australian representatives of the Iridaceae family.
There you go. Now, what have you got on your hot little hands?
Well, this is something I hadn't met till today. I'm very familiar with Dianellas, the flax lilies.
And I think that's quite common in Europe as a sort of a part of the whole perennial movement.
Oh, yes.
They're relatively cold hardy, aren't they?
They are, and they have attractive strappy foliage. They have rich dark blue, almost verging on purple flowers. But this one's one called Cherry Red, and it still gets the blue flowers with the little yellow centre in it, but the flower stems are red, which is an interesting thing. And if you look closely at it, you can actually see that the base of the leaf stems are also a lovely dark burgundy red. So it's a nice change on the normal theme.
Because we were just saying yellow is quite a theme, and red, strong red, isn't.
Not
in
so
Australian
much.
native
Not so much.
Floral world.
And of course, Dianella is one of those genera that isn't strictly just Australian either. I remember seeing Dianellas in Réunion. So there's lots of outlying species that aren't in Australia. But this one is a selection of one of the Australian species.
There we go.
So called cherry red.
Well, I think we're going to leave. What are we leaving? We're leaving grasses, lilies and tufting plants onto the next.
Yes, let's go.
So leaving lilies, and of course the Gymea lily, which is in pots over there.
Yes.
One of the tallest things. I mean, it's
yes.
taller than us. And we're passing through aquatic and bog plants, which you can just see there, which is perhaps not a category you'd imagine. I mean, why wouldn't you? But there are, of course, lots of wonderful Australian water plants.
Oh, of course there are, or marginal plants as well. Lots of things in the Restinaceae family, which has a mass in South Africa as well. So lots and lots of interesting plants. In fact, I just found one. Look at that. That's a native water ranunculus. So,
what?
Yes.
Goodness, what's it called?
Ranunculus glabrifolius.
Wow, and there's only one there, goodness me.
Yeah, we might have to take that home.
You've got the water garden. And of course, in our water lily special at Blue Lotus, we did look at the Australian native tropical water lilies, which are amazing.
Yes, exactly. We have some beauties here.
But there was also one thing Ben mentioned, which I'm just going to have a quick look at here, on an interesting aquatic plant. And it's this, which I was just look at that flower spike, but so it was called water ribbons is the common name. Yes,
and it's an Australian aquatic that if it's growing in a pot, the leaves will stand up like that. If it's actually submerged well down into water, the leaves will come up and then they'll just sit across the surface of the water, hence the common name water ribbons.
Okay, you pronounce the botanic name.
Oh, do I have to?
Yes.
Yes, it's Cycnogeton proceratum.
Interesting, very interesting, very unusual aquatic plant. Okay, we should carry on our journey to small shrubs.
Yes, let's.
Well, Stephen, now we're in shrubs. So there is a small shrub section and a large shrub section. And so there's the classics that we can see. Everything's alphabetical. So there's callistemons and melaleucas, the kind of things that you'd be, expecting. Banksias, grevilleas,
correas. There's a whole range of shrubs of multitudes of forms.
But then, of course, there are some quite unusual things. So Isopogon, I adore this.
Yeah.
And we saw a really beautiful example
at Maranoa Gardens, which we did a story at. So
we did.
You might like to go in and have a look at a big one.
Yeah, but kind of looks like a thistle.
Yes, it's got a very interesting flower head on it.
Yeah.
Flowers for ages during the spring, and I actually quite like the interesting leaves as well. They're sort of interesting trident-like leaves.
Yeah, the trident-like.
Yes.
Now, the other thing that struck us, Eremophila.
Yes. Now, Eremophila, we did a story.
Eremophila, I always pronounce it wrong.
Yeah.
That little flower there.
We did a story on this group of plants in the Melton Botanic Garden, so there's a standalone video about the genus. But this is one of the cultivars, which is a hybrid Eremophila, and it's called Pink Panther, and it has very attractive pink flowers, and it has the lovely silvery foliage of Nivea, which is one of its parents.
Yeah, stunning. And not often do you find them in nurseries.
No, they're one of those plants that is a bit of a collector's piece, I guess.
Now, the other thing, given my heritage in Western Australia, this is called...
This is Gastrolobium, the Swan River pea.
Swan River pea. So, two things. Firstly, Western Australia, or the southwest of WA, or southern-ish Western Australia, is one of those amazing botanic hotspots in the world.
It is indeed. There's a huge diversity of plants that come from that area, and it's sort of intriguing because these botanical hotspots around the world are often like the ones in Western Australia, and in fact South Africa has exactly the same sort of thing going on, and they're weirdly enough, generally speaking, on quite impoverished soils.
Yes, yeah.
So this whole gamut of plants seem to coexist together in soil that could hardly be called beautiful, rich and yummy soil that you would want, say, in your own garden.
Yeah.
So they come from a really interesting sort of background.
Which I guess can present challenges when you're growing them somewhere like this.
Yeah.
Like deep, rich, beautiful soil, because often They don't love it. I guess the other thing too is this is called Swan River pea. There are lots of Australian natives in the pea family, aren't there?
And they're really important because we just mentioned sort of infertile soils.
Yeah.
And of course, anything in the pea family is, generally speaking, a plant that will fix nitrogen. So it takes atmospheric nitrogen out of the air into the bacteria-filled nodules on the roots. And so the plant basically finds its own nitrogen out of the air. And of course, once it's done that, when it drops leaves or the plant dies itself, that nitrogen is put back into the soil again for the other species of plants to enjoy and use. So there's virtually, I can't think of any sort of habitat in the world where there aren't some nitrogen fixing species, and most of them tend to be the pea family.
There you go. Fascinating. So Stephen, as we're wandering around, although this isn't in bloom, this is one of those things that I'm kind of obsessed by, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for sale, and I've never seen them for sale anywhere.
Yes, the Persunias, the G-bungs.
So, Persunia pinifolia. Now, we saw this in your friend Virginia's garden.
Oh yes, a stunning specimen that she had in full bloom with its long racemes of orangey, terracotta-y coloured blooms with fine pine needle-like foliage. Beautiful.
And honestly, I'll drop the image in of the flower. It is the most incredible looking thing. Massive flowers, and it's so yellow, so striking. Virginia was saying how tricky it is to propagate. Ben was saying that this one, which is a cross with Juniperina.
Yeah, so it's a hybrid form, not the wild species form.
Is easier to grow from seed, and he's had more luck growing this from seed.
Yes, and it's obviously flowered. You can see where the flowers were running up the stem.
Right.
But of course, all of the colourful floral bits have dropped off now.
Well, there you go. Anyway, one of the things I found in Kuranga Nursery, which has made me very happy.
Good.
Well, Stephen, we've sort of ended where we began,
yes,
with trees here at Kuranga. So, obviously, I mean, everyone will associate Australia with the eucalypt.
Well, of course they would. What else would a koala need?
And Kuranga here has many, many, many eucalypts. There's also, obviously, the acacias that are trees,
another iconic group.
And the grevillea and, many other things. But a few oddities.
Yes, exactly. I mean, we do have some amazing rainforest trees as well in Australia.
Yeah.
People don't associate us with rainforest, but we do have it. And we've got this lovely young Stenocarpus sinuatus, the firewheel tree, which illustrates the point that not all of our natives are sort of small-leafed, drought-tolerant, grey foliaged plants. We have some really bold and interesting plants as well. And Stenocarpus, of course, gets fabulous scarlet flowers on it as well, which all the honey-eating birds adore.
And parrots.
And parrots, yes, they all get into these things. And it is a beautiful rainforest tree that we actually saw in flower in one of our videos, which was one of the ones we did at Ripon Lee.
Yeah, and although it is a rainforest tree, it actually does really well in Melbourne, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is perfectly good for Melbourne climate. It doesn't go down to any great deal of frost hardiness, so it would need to be more or less above 0 Celsius most of the time.
Yeah.
But of course, a lot of these things are grown to big trees. They can actually develop some frost immunity as they get taller, because frost tends to settle at ground level. So if you can get your tree up in the air a decent way, then they will in fact become more adaptable to the cold too.
Brilliant. And then one last tree, which is sort of a curiosity, extremely common, which is Melia azadarac. How do you pronounce that?
Azadarac.
Azadarac, there you go. The white cedar. Firstly, is it a cedar?
Well, no, except that it's called a white cedar, so I suppose it's its own sort of cedar. And it's one of the few more or less deciduous trees that we grow here in Australia, because it does become fairly strongly deciduous in cool climates. But it's really interesting because although it is considered to be native to northern parts of Australia, it's not strictly just an Australian native, because it goes right up through into the Indian subcontinent. So it grows over a huge range of areas.
Yeah, so it is considered a native, but it isn't. What's the word when it's only found in one country?
Well, it's not endemic just to Australia.
That's right. A common street tree here.
Yes, it's used quite a lot as a street tree.
Yeah.
And I have mixed feelings about it as a street tree, I have to say.
Gee, why, Stephen? Why?
Well, it's hardy, it's quick growing. I quite like deciduous street trees because they let the winter sunlight in.
Yeah.
It has beautiful flowers on it, so its flowers are beautiful. But it does get these hard, orangey brown seeds that drop out of the tree, and it could be like walking on marbles on a concrete path. So that can be an issue with it as far as a street tree is concerned, but it does make a great garden tree. And I've got one in the garden at home, but it's the variegated one.
Oh, well, oh, forbid I ever saw that. I wouldn't have thought. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
And quite drought tolerant, because you do see it as a street tree in Western Australia, for example, in Perth.
Yeah, it's a very drought tolerant, very hardy tree, and it will certainly go down to quite low temperatures because it's deciduous.
Well, there you go. Well, look, thanks to the Kuranga team and for Ben for his time.
Yes, exactly.
It has been an absolute joy wandering around this nursery.
Well, I've had a ball and I've met a few plants I've never seen before, so that's always a high point for me.
Well, Stephen, it is amazing to meet someone under the age of 60 in the nursery industry taking on a business like this. It's so inspiring.
Well, it certainly is, and it's such an incredible range of Australian native plants. I mean, you'd go a long way to see such a specialist nursery run so well and in such a systematic way, almost anywhere in Australia, actually.
You will. And in fact, it is so well regarded that it recently won an award.
Yes, with the NGIV, the Nursery and Garden Centre Institute of Victoria. So it got the Premier Award for a retail nursery.
Deservedly so, because it's absolutely brilliant. So we'll put the links below for the website and the Instagram account, which has the opening hours for the nursery. So do come along. All the specialists here can answer your questions. It's so well laid out, as we saw, that you can make it up as you go along, really.
Well, yes,
design
really
your own garden.
Yes.
Well, this has been brilliant. Now, we are going to make a few videos here, so they will pop up over the next few months, so stay tuned. But, Stephen, what could we be doing next week?
Oh, goodness, only knows. I have no idea. But we'll be out and about looking at something horticultural.
Wonderful. But until then, we look forward to seeing you next week.
Bye all.